Know that people say, don't tell people your dreams because they'll just make fun of you and they'll just tease you and you're never going to accomplish it. It's like, well, then just tell someone else your dream. Leave that person behind. That person is not who you want in your life. If you tell somebody your dream and they say, that's a great idea, I can't wait to see it come true. I'm so happy for you. I'm really excited for the direction you're going to go. However, I told so many people about this dream that now I had no other option except make the dream come true.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Path Found, the podcast about the real, messy, unexpected journeys that lead us to the work we love. I'm Monica Argandonia, and every week I talk with someone whose story proves there's no single right way to build a meaningful life. We get honest about pivots, false starts, the people who helped us, and the moments that changed everything. If you're exploring your next step, rethinking your direction, or looking for inspiration from people who figured it out as they went, you're in the right place. If you like what you hear, please share the podcast with a friend, subscribe, and leave us a review. You can also find us on Instagram at PathFound Podcast or online at KeystoneNetwork.org. There you can send in your comments, suggest guests or topics, or even apply to be a guest yourself. This podcast is for you. As a longtime teacher and anthropologist, I've always believed in the power of stories. They remind us we're not alone and that it's okay to change your mind, take a different route, or still be unsure of what comes next. I'm glad you're here. We have a lot of important topics to cover, so let's get started. So I am super happy to be here this morning with Sal Medina. He is a city council member, a small business owner, a sommelier. I don't imagine, though, that you grew up thinking that that is what you were going to be. My own 13-year-old doesn't like when people ask her what she wants to be. She says, how would I know? I haven't lived yet. So if we could just go back and what were you like as a kid? Like, where did you get started?
Wow. Well, first, thank you for having me. It's interesting because I oftentimes joke that I've lived multiple lives because I've done more than I ever imagined that I would have ever accomplished in my lifetime. And from that perspective, growing up, depending on what phase of my life you're referring to, but as a kid, call it elementary school, I had zero idea what I was going to be when I was an adult. More importantly, growing up in a Hispanic family, and you know, as most Hispanics are, what do you do when you grow up? Well, you do what your dad did. You know, he's a mechanic, so I guess I'll be a mechanic. He's a welder, so I guess I'll be a welder. But really, for the most part, growing up in elementary school, I would say the unfortunate reality is the first 6 years of my life, I didn't think about what I was going to do when I was going to grow up. I was working on surviving year to year.
Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I love to share, especially in today's day and age. I love to share with individuals that I am an immigrant, and I love that. I love that part of my life because I get to show people what success can be from an immigrant standpoint. But what I mean by trying to quote unquote survive from year to year is that what I was in elementary school is I was an overweight kid wearing glasses. English was my second language, and all of my clothes were hand-me-downs. So at a bare minimum, I grew up in elementary school was in the 80s, which is completely different what elementary school is like in today. Now I'm sure there's online bullying, there's physical bullying, there's activities then, but growing up in Azusa, going to school and looking the way I did, there was always a challenge with regards to getting picked on a day-to-day basis, just because of things that were beyond my control. Obviously,
it was a struggle, but how did you kind of get through that? What helped?
I would say in hindsight, it appeared to be a struggle, but living in it, it's to me, even now, looking back on it, it was like, oh yeah, I was poor when I grew up, but I didn't know I was poor when I grew up because everyone around me lived the same way. So to me, it wasn't a struggle because I was in the ESL classes with other kids that didn't speak English, and we were all the same. And all of the people that I knew back then were also wearing hand-me-downs. So we were in kind of that misfit audience of this is just life, you know, and unfortunately getting picked on became part of life, and you just adapted and you just rolled with those punches. But really what kind of the turning point was somewhere in middle school. Of course, in elementary school, getting bullied and picked on, you find protection, and you find protection in the wrong people. And those individuals were people that were associated with the wrong crowd, but they were the ones that would now protect me from getting beat up. So that group I ran with through middle school, and somewhere in the 8th grade, I was hanging out at a local park right next to my home with that group of kids, and I noticed that football practice was starting. It was late summer, and there was football activity happening, and I went home and I asked my parents if I could play football, and their response was, even at that age, their response was like, well, if you can pay for it, you can do it. And fortunately, I had a job, I had a paper route, so I had a little bit of money, and I jumped into football. And as I joke today when I hire youth or I have young people around me, you know, if you're busy, you can't get in trouble. If
Yes.
you're studying, if you have a job, if you're doing co-curricular activities, volunteering, it's really hard to get in trouble when you're busy all of the time. And football created a busy schedule where naturally it made it easy for me to tell my group that I should not have been hanging out with, that I couldn't hang out with them now.
So this is middle school.
Yeah, specifically, yeah, 8th grade. Yeah,
Okay.
I remember specific in the 8th grade because 7th grade was when life really got a little bit more challenging where I went in the 7th grade. I went to a park with the friends of mine and not knowing that was the night that we were supposed to get jumped in. And I saw the first kid
wow.
that got jumped in, and there was about 3 or 4 guys that just beat up on the kid and scared the crap out of me, and I took off.
Well, good for you. Wow. Okay. So you're in football, you're in 8th grade. What's next?
That really becomes, I would say, sports as a whole. And that's why I love when it's great to see that kids are still involved in youth sports. What I struggle with is how aggressive youth sports are today, because really youth sports are designed to create a second family away from home and community. And that kind of parlayed into high school. I jumped into high school, and the best thing about high school is that when you go to a high school from feeder schools, from 3 different middle schools, you naturally make friends. You naturally have a family. You naturally have protection. You have people that have similar goals to you. And that's always been my idea. And coincidentally, I say coincidentally, but I guess things happen for a reason. But you align yourself with people who have similar goals with you. And the individuals that were playing football played baseball, wrestled, played soccer, were track, but they were driven individuals. So you hang out with those individuals and they create a sense of purpose and create a sense of desire to do better. And I think that's where the turning point was for me, is between that 8th and 9th grade, where I realized I might not be the best at what I'm doing, but I belong where I'm at.
Did you have adults that helped? Did you have like coaches or teachers?
10th grade, there was a project in which our history teacher, 11th grade, U.S. history, Mr. Remkes, we had to teach a class. And basically you got together with a group of 3 or 4 kids and you learned a particular subject matter of what you were doing, and you taught the class for the day. In my group, we taught the class, and I thought I did okay, fairly well. But the following class mentioned to me during break or lunch or passing, whatever it was, that he actually commented of how good I did in the previous class. And little things like that was like, it gives you that little support. And you don't think that it's that much, but just a little affirmation of somebody saying, do it like this, or this person did it great. It creates kind of value in you.
Mhm.
And from that perspective, it was like, I can do it. I can do better. And same with coaches. The coaches push you to be better and push you to be better than you think you can be yourself. And it's always that mind over matter concept, which it's hard to really understand as a kid, but the coaches will really push you as hard as they think your body will allow
Right.
you to be pushed, and force your mind to convince your body that can happen. And the thing from that is, if you push that into your everyday mentality, not just in sports, you can trick yourself into being better than you are if you just convince yourself that is true.
So you did that.
That's essentially it. Yeah, I lied to myself. If you want to be blunt, I tricked myself. I convinced myself, and some of it. And I've oftentimes joked in the society, and when I taught for a number of years, I would always joke that men and women, or boys and girls, have different mirrors. A female will look in front of the mirror and it looks fantastic, but we'll say there's always an issue with something going on. Where a boy will look in the mirror and it probably looks pretty average, or not dressed correctly, or dirty, or whatever it is, and they'll say, I'm amazing. And the reality is I think that we have to convince all of our youth, whether you're male,
Right.
female, or however you identify, that you look in the mirror and you are amazing.
Yeah.
And just convince yourself that is true. And maybe it's a lie you're telling yourself, but if you lie to yourself that you are great long enough, you will be great.
So that's really hard to do in high school, middle school, high school years
Very hard. Very hard to do.
for anybody.
Mhm.
Did you think that, like, okay, so things turn around for you, but did you think you were going to go to college? Did you, like, what are you thinking is the future's going to look like?
No, I still thought I was going to go work for my dad. I spent a summer 1 year with him. Part of it, I think he needed a carpool buddy. Part of it was that I had an income in the summer, but I went to work with my dad, who was a welder, stainless steel fabricator. And in the summer, if you know anything about welding, you're grinding, you're working with heavy tools and dust and things of that nature. And spending a summer working from 8 to 5 or leaving at 6 a.m. to do that, doing that for 2 or 3 months. After that, I said, I'm 100% going to college. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I don't want to do this. So it really just kind of made me realize I don't want to work that hard. I can't. My body won't allow me. And if I am young and have the opportunity to not work that hard, I should make the decision to not go into welding. And welding is a great profession. My dad is an amazing welder. And in today's day and age, I understand what people say, well, you don't need to go to college. You don't have to go to college. And I always preached that when I was teaching. I would always tell my students, you don't have to go to college. College to me just gave me more avenues on the highway of life. It gave me more off ramps of where I
More
can choose to
options.
do things. Exactly.
Right.
So if you go off and you become a welder, your options become a little less. You can still make great money. You can still have a great life. But as a college graduate, it gives you more options to not necessarily do what your major tells you you're going to do, but give you options of other possibilities in life.
So you apply to college. Did you know where you wanted to go, what you wanted to major in? How did you figure that out?
No. Actually, it's funny. Big props to the junior college system.
Yeah.
The junior college system, I would say two things really saved and helped me in junior college. I went to Citrus, and part of that was because coming out of Gladstone in the city of Covina, or the school district, a lot of my friends went to Citrus. So I just went to Citrus because that's what they did. And again, it's that same mentality. It's like, well, they're going to Citrus, so that can't be a bad thing. I'll go to Citrus. I spent a year there kind of, just figuring things out. And again, not being the best student, I have to jump into Citrus College and take more remedial classes and try to get back to at least ground zero where college academia starts. I go to Citrus, and as I tell people, I'm a non-traditional college graduate. And basically that means it took me a lot longer than it takes most people. But what really the turning point there was that, again, back to the point, you surround yourself with great people. And my ex-girlfriend was very smart. I met her while I was working in retail, and she was a nursing student and knew what she wanted to do and was very bright, very intelligent. And the same competitive nature kind of came about in my world at that point where I said, I don't want to be, I don't want to say dumber, but less smart than she is. I don't want her to be the smartest person in the room when it's only her and I. When I full well knew she was the smartest person in the room, but I wanted to make sure that I can go toe to toe with conversation, with intellectual knowledge, with general knowledge. And that made me realize I have to do better if I'm going to stick around with this individual.
So how long were you at Citrus?
It was an interesting path because I think my whole junior college experience was maybe 4 years. 1 year of doing nothing, just taking classes and pretending that I was a student so I could tell people that I was a student. 2 years of actually saying, I got to get my act together. Let's make this work. And then 1 year of trying to figure out how to apply to college. I had no idea how to apply to a 4-year college because I was the first person in my family to have ever gone to college. And I was also too embarrassed to ask people how to do it. So I then left Citrus and went to Mount Sacs just because I didn't want to stay at Citrus for another year because everyone knew that it was time to leave, or at least from my perspective, I should have left. So I went to Mount Sac and just took like a typing class or something generic while I figured out how to go to college. And I basically went to the University of Laverne and admissions office and I said, I don't know what I'm doing. Can you help me apply?
Did you go there just because it was close and you knew of it, or?
I went to the University of Laverne for two reasons. Number one, proximity. I still lived at home and I worked full time while I was at Citrus and at Laverne because I'm coming from a single household where I was living with my mom only. I had to pay bills. So I had been paying bills at home for a number of years before that. But having a full-time job and knowing that, again, as a lot of Hispanics do, you get a job and what that means is now you get a bill. As soon as in the Hispanic culture at that time, you get a job, you start making money. So now you're in charge of the electric bill. You get a raise, you make more money. Now you get the gas bill. So you get extra responsibility. And we didn't see it as a negative. We just saw it as how we're contributing to the family and how we're making our family successful. But while at Laverne, I was working full time. So I needed to be home, close to home, number one. The second thing, this is funny, I went to Laverne because I knew it was expensive. It's interesting. Yeah. So the reason I went to Laverne is because at Citrus, it was so inexpensive that if I failed a class, I just retook it. It didn't cost that much. It wasn't that big of an issue. But while at Laverne and the cost associated with going to Laverne, I would be damned if I would skip a class. I would succeed because the dollar attached to that was too high. I would be that individual that when a professor would cancel a class, I would be upset because I still paid for that class. And to some degree, I felt I deserved a refund on them not showing up because the cost of that school was so much. And I did get scholarships and grants to pay for a portion of it. But again, I didn't come from a family in which mom, dad, uncles, or aunts could contribute to academics at that point. It was very similar to my story with football. You want to go to Laverne? You can do it. We're here for you, but you pay for it. It wasn't said you pay for it, but we knew those were the choices you make. And now you've got to figure out how to pay for it.
That's so interesting because, I've taught at the University of Laverne and would have students not show up week after week and fail these classes. And I would say to them that very thing, like, you are paying for this. This is costing you a lot of money. Why would you not show up? And they all kind of look at me like, so there's something about you too, like something's driving you.
I still go back to the sport mentality. I need to be a better version of who I am. Sports forces me to be a better version of who I am. I want to get better. I may not be the best. I may not be good, but I want to be better than what I am now. And it's constant growth. And no matter at what age, and even now at this point in life, I'm still doing things that people are like, why are you doing that? And it's like, because I still have the urge to be better. And a lot of that urge, especially now, where as I got older, once I was in college, the expectation for me to get better now and for me to be successful, accomplished, whatever you want to call it, was because I felt as if I owed it to my parents for bringing me to this country and sacrificing all that they did to come here. And truth be told, my mom and dad both are about one of 16 or 17 kids. Dad is, I believe, one of 17. Mom's one of 16. And I remember the first time my mom saw her sister after being apart for 18 years. And I understand that the climate is aggressive and it's difficult to accept what the immigrant story is. But from my perspective, I can't go a week without seeing my wife, without missing her. I could only imagine going 18 years without seeing my mother, my loved ones. And that's what my mom and dad did. And when we became permanent residents and we were able to go back to the U.S. and I saw my mom embrace her sister for the first time, it was
right.
Yeah. So those little things are
driving.
Yeah. It's an unspoken debt that I think I have to them.
Yeah.
For them sacrificing what they did, because it's amazing that they did. And I always joke now. I just spoke to somebody about this the other day, and they said, "Well, what would your life be if you weren't in the U.S.?" And I was like, I know exactly what I'd be doing. I'd be a machine worker, working at a garage in Mexico, because that's what my cousins do. And for the same reason, it's like, well, you do what you do based off the people in your circle, and that would be my circle.
So you're 4 years community college. You're now at the University of Laverne. Did you have an interest? Did you know what you wanted to be?
No, I was a political science major, and I often thought that I would go into politics somewhere, and I thought that making my way into politics would be like a field rep or something in Sacramento or DC. Or you look at the sexy aspect of politics when you're in college, and you think that's what I want to do. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that if I can do that and help others, that would be my goal as a poli-sci major. But once graduating, a couple of my friends were teachers, and they all said, "Hey, you should teach. This is fun. You should teach." I'm like, "Well, that sounds like a good idea. I think I was pretty good at it when I had that project in high school, so I should teach." So I applied to sub in different school districts and said, "Well, I'll get a taste of whether I want or not I want to teach." And Monrovia called and said, "We have a long-term sub job for you," which I didn't know what that meant, but ultimately that ended up being a year-long substitute position at Monrovia High School. And then they invited me to teach after that. So I fell into education almost accidentally because, again, some of my peers were doing that and some of my friends were doing that. And I don't want to say it was an easy job, but it was like, well, I got a job, so I should enjoy it. And it was easy to find the job, I should say.
Did you like it?
I loved it. The teaching was, which is still why I enjoy teaching now. I oftentimes joke with what I'm doing now. I still get to teach. I just now get to teach adults and about alcohol. So it's a little bit of a different subject and a lot more enjoyable. But I love teaching the kids. People would joke when I left education, say, "Oh, did you leave because the kids were the best part." Yeah. Of teaching. The kids, watching them light up, watching them accept the challenge, watching them get better. And even the kids that were never going to get better academically, there's other ways that you can help those students. To me, it wasn't about scoring the best on an exam. You see a kid who's struggling at home, who has issues, who has problems going on, and you connect with them on a human level. And even if they're failing, unless they've done absolutely nothing, they deserve at least a D-, because you never know where that D- might create hope in that individual to next time maybe work a little harder to get a C. So I wouldn't say that I didn't fail a lot of students, but if you did absolutely no work, you deserve to fail. Outside of that, if you tried, but again, some of these kids, they went home and were the babysitters that night for their siblings. They went home and had a job. They had to work all weekend. And those challenges didn't allow them to be good students, but they were good people. And to me, that sometimes is just as beneficial as being a good student.
So how long did you stay?
I taught for 7 years at Monrovia High. I loved every minute of it. I coached girls volleyball while I was there. I was the Key Club advisor. I was the chair of the small humanities department that I was in. I was very aggressive. And at the same time, on the weekend, there was a wine shop nearby. And during college, I worked at Albertsons, and I was the liquor manager while I was at Albertsons. And seeing that there was a wine shop nearby, I said, well, let me go over there and see if they need some help. And sure enough, they hired me on and said, if you want to work Fridays and Saturdays, you can come here and do that. So I taught, did all the school activities Monday through Friday. And then after work, I went to work at the wine shop. And on Saturdays, I worked at the wine shop as well.
So you're teaching, why a wine shop? Like,
No idea.
okay.
No idea. It just had a sign on the door that said help wanted. And I enjoyed my time as the liquor manager at Albertsons. And I said, well, help wanted means more money, and more money is good. So I jumped in and asked if they needed help. And it's really coincidence.
Did you know anything about wine?
Not at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. So then why did you leave teaching?
I left teaching. So throughout my time as a teacher, while I was working at the wine shop, I created this idea of this wine shop and restaurant or tasting room or something similar to what actually a smaller scale of what I have now. But what I have now was essentially what I envisioned while I was working at the wine shop. And I had talked to all my friends and I said, this is what I want to do someday. This is my dream. And the reality is this, I believe firmly that if you verbalize your dreams, it creates a greater responsibility of accomplishing them. I know that people say, well, don't tell people your dreams because they'll just make fun of you and they'll just tease you and you're never going to accomplish it. It's like, well, then just tell someone else your dream. Leave that person behind. That person is not who you want in your life.
Exactly.
If you tell somebody your dream and they say, that's a great idea, I can't wait to see it come true. I'm so happy for you. I'm really excited for the direction you're going to go. However, I told so many people about this dream that now I had no other option except make the dream come true. So when I was offered tenureship at high school, I decided to quit.
Okay. So two things. I totally agree. You have to put your dreams out in the universe and talk about them and tell people and say them because then they become reality.
Yeah.
And you'll always have haters and people who are doubters and the whole bit. But again, I think that's a great point is those are the people you don't want around you anyway. When you were at the wine bar working, what was it? Like, did something click? Did you realize, oh my gosh, this is super interesting? Was it, because that's a big jump.
It is. It's funny. It is. Not only is it a big jump, but my family, we don't drink wine. I didn't come from a family of wine drinkers. I didn't come from a family of people that experience wine as a culture. Unfortunately, I came from a family of recovering alcoholics, people that drank too much and didn't understand the relationship between alcohol and living. Just, it was alcohol and that was it. But wine was because to me, even today, it forces you to think. It puts you in a place. It makes you, it creates memories. It creates ideas. I love the idea of wine because when people think about wine, when the general consumer thinks about wine, they think about red wine, white wine, I'm going to drink, this tastes good. When I think about wine I look at the year, what was happening that year? What was I doing that year? What created a great environment to make good wine? What was happening in France in 2021? What was happening in Oregon in 2020? And while I was at the wine shop, I loved the knowledge-based aspect of wine. And I love the history aspect of wine. At Minerva High School, I ended up being a world history teacher. I taught world history and government econ, so sophomores and seniors. And the wine shop or the wine industry, even today, it's like, it's not just wine. It's alive, it's breathing, it's active. There's more to it than what's in the glass. Most people don't see it, but that's how I see wine. To me, it's what were the efforts that took place to make that wine a reality?
So it was more a logical transition than it appears. You were interested in history and
yeah, I guess so. Yeah,
and people too. I mean, I think this whole industry you're in is you have to want to be around people and educating people.
It's funny. It's educating people, but it's also knowing your place when you educate people. A lot of times people just don't care. They just want to know this is a red wine. It's got red fruit. It's like fantastic and reading the room. But when you see people, especially youth that get into wine for the first time and start asking questions and get excited, or you see somebody who's late in their wine consumption journey, but now have realized this is so cool.
Yeah.
It takes me back to Minerva High School.
Yeah.
When I'm teaching kids and the light bulb goes on. And that light bulb moment, as adults, we don't get to see that often because our circle changes, our training ability or our willingness to share kind of diminishes as we get older. Mm-hmm. But in the industry that I'm in now, I see that every day. I see that every week. It's constant where you see people's like, oh, and that light bulb goes on. And to me, that light bulb is what drives me. It's fascinating to be able to see people in life with a light bulb moment, regardless of what you're doing.
So, all right. So you quit the school. You're now pursuing this business dream, opening your own place. And so what is that looking like? What's that transition?
So I left high school. I left Minerva High School in 2004. So I left teaching in 2004 and said, well, I've got to try to figure out how this is going to work. But what I did, honestly, is I took a gap year from life. So I convinced myself that I should travel the world to visit as many wine shops and wine bars to get ideas as to what I want to do. But the reality is that I had a little bit of savings. My roommate at the time had decided he was going to move out the same year that I was going to leave education to get married. So I didn't really have a place to live. So I said, well, I never traveled in high school. I always worked full time. I was in college. I really never jumped on a plane until I was a senior in college. So I left teaching and decided I was going to see as much of the world as I could for the next year or two. So at that time, I went up the Northwest, drove up to Canada, and I saw different parts of the world while I was working with a friend who had a couple of different jobs up and down the Northwest in California, selling wine of the month club. So I was doing that at like California State Fair, Ventura Fair, different fairs to make a little bit of money. So I'd leave for a couple of months and come back and work for a little bit and then leave a little bit. And then I took off to Europe for a few months. And I just decided I was going to go and explore the world and find out a little bit about myself. And the funny thing about that is I was expected to go counterclockwise in my European trip, meaning starting somewhere in the south in Italy, Greece, and make my way up towards England or Ireland, depending on how much money I had. And instead, for whatever weird reason, I decided to go clockwise. And it was just the best thing that could have ever happened for my travel. From the perspective that I started in DC for the 4th of July. So I ended up in DC for 4th of July fireworks. From there, went to London. While in London, I was able to see a match at Wimbledon. I was able to see the London Grand Prix. London was great, but I left there. And on my way down south, I ended up running with the Bulls in Pamplona. I ran with the Bulls twice while I was there. Continuing down into parts of Europe, I ended up seeing the Tour de France twice.
Wow.
I saw the Tour de France in Montpellier. And I saw the Tour de France in Montpellier because I was in Barcelona and I was out much later than I should have been. So when I got on my train that was expected to take me to Bordeaux, because again, I was using this as a work trip, on my way to Bordeaux, I overslept and I woke up at Narbonne, which was the stop that was supposed to exit the train to get onto a new train to go to Bordeaux. I overslept and I ended up in Montpellier. And in Montpellier, I didn't have a place to sleep. I didn't have a place to stay, but I said, well, let's see what happens. Saw the Tour de France in Montpellier, made some friends there, stayed with them, new friends, like strangers, stayed there, got back on the train, took off. And then in Paris, I saw the finale, the finish line of the Tour de France, and then make your way throughout Europe as well. Things just happen for a reason. I ended up in Switzerland, and Switzerland, if you don't know, is a very quiet country. You can't be loud after 10. It's a very respectful. It's very quiet. I did some fun things there with regards to canyoning or hiking, mountain biking, things of that nature, but also happened to be there on Switzerland's National Independence Day. And it was like Burning Man. It was like Burning Man in one day. It was like amazing party. And it was like the one day that everyone let loose. And again, just coincidence. I didn't plan to go there for that. I just happened to be there. The only goal at that time was to be in Athens for the Summer Olympic Games. That was the only thing on my schedule. 4th of July, DC, Athens for the Olympic Games. Everything in between there was just coincidental.
Wow. And you were by yourself?
I was by myself. Yeah. I just was at the time, even today in parts of Europe, it's somewhat safe for especially for men. I hitchhiked, took the train. And even today, when I talk to people about traveling or gap years or things of that nature, and sometimes parents and kids come in and they'll ask me about, this guy has a job lined up. He's thinking about working. I always promote gap years.
Yeah.
A year between college and life can be very, very good if done correctly. And from that perspective, I tell the individuals, I say, you should take a gap year, but make sure when you take a gap year, you write, you journal. You write as much as you can, because as much as you think you're going to remember everything you did, the mind fails you after time.
Yeah.
So maybe 10 years you'll remember, but 20, 30, 40, or 50 years, those memories become faded. But being able to go back and read your journal is amazing, number one. Second, I always tell them, put your phone down. Introduce yourself to somebody next to you. Say hello. The power of communication face-to-face. With technology today, you could be in France and have a conversation with your friends in California and constantly on social media or texting, which I get that's fun, but you have an opportunity to go and create what I call, that nobody knows now, but that international Rolodex.
Yeah.
To meet people around the world while you're traveling, make a connection, say hello.
Did you journal?
I did, yeah. I journaled, I read, book exchange, I met as many people. I still keep in contact with some folks that are out and about in the world that I met during travel. One individual, we were in Spain, and coincidentally, we exited the train, got on the train, exited the train, got on the train, and by the third or fourth time that we did that, we looked at each other and said, hey, where are you going? I ended up rooming with him. We talked about going to Pamplona and running with the Bulls, and he said his his friends left him. And I said, my friend didn't show up. So he and I went to Pamplona and ran with the bulls. And I did that 2 years ago again. I went there for a birthday and I ran with the bulls again. And then I posted about it. And he reached out to me and he said, that brings back so many memories. So every once in a while, he'll reach out and friends from Spain reach out, friends from Greece, Italy, and friends, it's a loose word. People that I met on my journey.
Yeah.
But it's still fun. Those are people that I would have never met had I not had a gap year.
That's incredible. So how long were you gone?
Left education in 2004, opened the business in 2007. So off and on, I spent 3 years working, traveling, odd jobs here and there. During that time, I coached men's volleyball at Redlands High School. I worked with my friend's wine shop. I just did a couple of odd jobs to kind of make ends meet. I kind of slept at friends' houses. I slept at my mom's house. I slept at my sister's house. I really, for about 3 years, for about 2.5 years, maybe 2 years, I didn't have a home. I just was kind of living, trying to figure things out, trying to figure out whether or not I made the right decision. So it was tough. It was really, really tough during those 3 years because it was, at that time, it was probably the dumbest thing I could have done was left education because stable income, insurance, benefits, blah, 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 all that stuff. And here I am, walking into my buddy's house at midnight when I got in and sleeping on the floor just because I didn't have a place to go.
Do you regret it?
Not at all. Hindsight's 2020. It's easy to say now. It's easy to say now. It's one of those things where fortunately, quote unquote, I'm successful, but it's easy to say I don't regret it now. Absolutely not, because things happened for good reasons and they went correctly. And I ended up finding this place here when I was looking for a place to live in Claremont, and I saw the sign or the advertisement on the building that said, restaurants, artisan shops, business, whatever it may be, and reached out and called them, and that's how this place got started.
So during that time, 3 years that's a long time to kind of take these gaps. Were you planning your business? Were you thinking about it? Were you saving? Why 3 years?
Cool. Just timing. So I wasn't saving. I was spending. Didn't have a job, but I was enjoying life, traveling, doing my thing. And truth be told, I do want to back up. In 03 was actually when I met my wife. So we were dating. So when I was in Europe, I was traveling by myself, but I did meet her in Italy. So when I was on my way down, I met her in Italy and she was there to join me for Greece. So the same thing as I back up to the girlfriend I had in college. Being around her, even today, it's like, I can't be the dumbest person in the room when it's just her and I. I have to figure out how to be better. And she'll tell you she's the smartest person in the room when it's her and I. We both know that to be true. But no, during that time, it was her and I. I was trying to figure it out, and she was the best advocate. She was constantly saying, again, to that point, you share the dreams with the right people, and she was the right person.
So you take this leap, you sign this lease, you're going to open this business, this wine business. What was that like the first year, the first 2 years?
So we opened in April of 2007. I took everything out of my savings, maxed out every credit card I had. Unfortunately, I also took out my pension out of the teacher's purse program. So got hit with penalties, got hit with taxes, but put everything that I had into this place. A lot of sweat equity, meaning we painted the walls, we laid the tile down, we opened up. And I laugh now when I look at pictures of 2007 when we opened up, and I thought, God, this place looks dinky. Who would ever shop here at that time? It was really a nickel and dime startup at that time, maybe pennies and nickel startup. The first year was easy. The first year was 2007. People were spending money like they were never going to run out of it. I thought after that Christmas that this was going to be an instant success. Life was going to be amazing. It was going to be incredible. I made the right decision. It was going to be easy, smooth sailing from here on. 2008 happens. And 2008 happens and everything changes. Everything goes south. Everything goes downhill. Start of the recession. Things go drastically bad here in terms of no one's spending money. No one's buying anything. We literally sit here with somebody coming in back then, a $7 glass of wine. Somebody would have a $7 glass of wine and I would sit here as long as they wanted to be here just to make sure that they were happy enough to come back another day.
Yeah.
It just was a matter of how are we going to make this? How every penny that was made here was reinvested into the business for the first 5 years. My first paycheck, I believe, came to me after about 5 years, a stable income. From that perspective, meaning that the first 5 years, we were living off the tips that we made here, and we paid ourselves enough to be able to cover the taxes on the tips, but there was no income coming in from the wine shop. Evie, my wife, she had a full-time job, so we were living off of the income that she had, and then the the money that we had with her gave us a stable life. But I believe my first paycheck was 5 years later into the business. And even then we laughed because my first paycheck was $600 a month, which is nothing. It really doesn't do anything, but we were so happy. It was like, our lives are going to change. It's like 600. We started annualizing it. After the course of years, like, wow, we could have $6,000 in a year. Not a lot, but back then from nothing to 6,000 was a lot.
So when you started this, did you feel you knew enough about running your own business?
Not at all.
Enough about the wine industry?
Nope, not at all. I think the best thing that could have happened to me when I opened this business is that I didn't know the business.
Why?
Because being naive that I could be successful was the best knowledge that I had. The fact that I didn't know how to be, now there were pitfalls, there were things that actually made my life harder because I didn't know it. But it's like anything else. If I knew now what I wish I knew then, would I still be doing this? No, this is hard. This is it was very, very hard. The first 10 years of business were incredibly hard. And I guess just being naive and challenging myself to do it convinced me that I could.
What kept you going? Like even through the recession and
Fear
those
of failure.
5 years?
Fear of failure. It's the same thing from end to end. Fear of failure. I did not want to fail. I did not want to come in second place. Even today, what keeps me going? It's fear of failure. Why do you work so hard? People ask. Because I know what it's like to be poor. Because I know what it's like to go without. I work hard because I don't want to be that person again. Because I know what it's like to be hungry. And people sometimes don't get it. And even then, to the reverse of that, people are like, oh, you're so successful. You're so lucky. It's like, I heard somebody say once, the harder I work, the luckier I get. And that is true. The harder I work, the luckier I get. So sometimes when people say you're so lucky, to me, it's like you have no idea what that means. It's luck, sure. But luck comes because of hard work.
Yeah. Lack of sleep, hard work, stress.
Yeah. And that's just it. I mean, I was younger back then. I mean, I still today, I still amaze myself sometimes wondering how I can, between work and council, how I can wake up at 7 a.m. and come home at midnight after a council meeting and know that I worked a 16-hour day. And most people are like, I'm done after 8. And it's like, 8 is nothing. I take my lunch break after 8.
So, all right. So 10 years in, it's feeling better. Do things shift? And now it's almost 20 years.
Yeah. Funny story about that though. I joked. I actually do. This is an absolutely true story. 9 years, 11 months, and 31 days. I did not feel like I belonged. I did not feel like I made it. I did not feel I was successful. The following day, I felt like I made it.
Okay, so
no idea. At the 10-year mark, I was finally, they've accepted me. It had that. I still had that. I have to work. I don't belong. This isn't going to succeed. Even though most businesses, they say, fail after the first 3 to 5 years, and I was at 10 years. But it wasn't until April 8th of 2017 did I feel finally I can unloosen my belt a little bit.
Why? Like what? What was it?
It was.
I mean, you had accolades by that point. You had been recognized. You were still surviving where so many businesses around you had shut down already.
I think it was just being able to, just being able to be 10 years. I guess like you look at a little kid, how old are you? And it's always 6 and 7 and 8. But once you hit 10, there's a little bit of pride when you can say 10. It's 2 full hands of counting. It's 10. I don't know. There's something about 10. 10 makes it where it's like, we've grown up. We've now moved on to phase 2 of the business. Understanding that there may be 3 or 4 or 5 phases in a business. We're barely in phase 2 of our business.
So how are you feeling now?
I feel as if the business is a staple in the community. I was at Claremont Day at the Fair, Pomona Fairplex, years and years and years ago when they used to do Day at the Fairs. And a school board member was talking about what makes Claremont special and was talking about Claremont is special because of all these classic businesses that are in town, and spoke of 42nd Street Bagel and spoke of Tutti Manja and spoke of staples on the east side of the village. And then said, but Claremont is also special because of the new of Claremont, and spoke of the west side of the village and mentioned our name in that comparison. And at that point, I called Evie right away and I said, I think we're getting there. I think we're getting there. And that was somewhere around the 8th or 9th year. And that made me feel like, okay, the community accepts me. The community knows who we are. We are the community. We are the business. I am the business. It's all in one. So today it's a matter of, we're a regional business. I got people that come and visit us when they visit their kids from Singapore. People that come and visit us when they come here from Australia, New Zealand, Argentina, Texas, New York, Irvine, Orange County. I mean, we're global, not because we're global, but the city of Claremont is global, and people come to see us. So now I don't know if I would still say I made it. I would just say I'm getting close to making it.
Wow.
Yeah.
You still don't feel like you've made it?
No, I still don't feel like I've made it. I feel like the business runs and the business will be here next week, next month, I hope next year. But I still don't like like to, as they say, count your chickens before they hatch. People say, well, you're almost 20. It's like, well, I'm not 19 yet. We turn 19 first before we turn 20. And a lot of that has to do with, don't look too far ahead, because if you do, you might forget what's in front of your face.
What made you run for city council? All this is going on. You're still not feeling this is truly successful. What was that drive?
Well, it's a little bit, you got to go back and think about what the climate was like in, was it 2020, I believe, the last national election. The climate during 2020, there was a lot of rhetoric with regards to Hispanics, not necessarily, and minorities, I should say, minorities or immigrants being the negative elements of society, criminals, degenerates, negative people. So a lot of it had to do with the fact that I wanted to run to show that wasn't the case, that minorities are a positive attribute to the community, number one. Second, I've always felt, well, our city council historically has been a good city council. As a business owner, I felt as if they didn't necessarily listen to the business community, because the business community may or may not live in Claremont, so therefore we may or may not vote in Claremont. I also felt that as a business, I was going to work as hard as I humanly could to stay successful and to create revenue for the city, but the city never showed its appreciation for that. I felt as if the city never came in and said, hey, thank you for being here. Thank you for being a small business. Thank you for making Claremont special, great, unique, whatever it may be. As a business owner, I said, I want to join council to show both of those things, to show appreciation to the business community, to show appreciation to the minorities, to the Hispanic, especially Hispanics for me, but really everyone who feels as if, we'll use the word marginalized, even though I feel sometimes that's overused, but really to be the voice of people who felt voiceless. And that year was also the first year that the city of Claremont went to districts, meaning that we were subdivided into small little representations within the city. Mm-hmm. And at that time, or excuse me, even today, I represent District 5, which is South Claremont, which to me is the A, economic engine of the city of Claremont, and B, the most diverse community in all of the city of Claremont. So for those two things, I felt that I was the perfect person, or the best person, I shouldn't say perfect, but the best person to represent this district. Mm-hmm. I get to go and talk to people, especially the Spanish speakers, in their native tongue. And many people say, I've never talked to a politician, I've never talked to a council member. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that as Hispanics, as first gen or immigrants, my mom would never talk to her city council member. That person is revered, respected. They're over there, we're over here. They're doing what they do, we do what we do. And it's not that they don't like each other, or that my mom didn't like him. She just didn't feel she belonged in that conversation. So being able to talk to people in their language and be able to go to business owners and say, hey, if there's anything the city could do, especially when they say, well, the city doesn't care. It's like, no, we do. So I really want to put a face to both of those personalities.
So you ran, you won, you've been mayor of the city. You're now back to city council member. What do you think's been the best part? Did you achieve what you wanted to?
I achieved a lot of what I wanted to as first-time mayor while I was mayor. There was a lot that I achieved. A lot of it had to do with, my big thing about being mayor was meeting people on their own ground, not expecting them to come to council, not expecting them to come to the booth. Not, again, for the same reason that my family would never do that, but going to the community and talking to people, and not necessarily solely the people that are engaged. The people that are engaged are already engaged. They'll show up to council, they'll email, they'll call, they'll find us, but showing up to the places where people would never expect you to be, meaning the apartment complexes, the restaurants, the neighborhoods, things of that nature. So that was my big goal, and I feel I accomplished that. The other thing is there's a lot to do, and the issue I have with government, for better or worse, it's slow. It's glacial. Yeah. It operates painfully slow. And I say for better or worse because sometimes there's a reason it operates slow. It has to operate slow to make sure that everything gets checked and done correctly. On the other hand, it's like, it should be simple. The light is broken. Get it fixed.
Right.
So it's infrastructure is my big thing, is making sure South Claremont has infrastructure that looks and feels like all of Claremont. And people will say, well, we're all one Claremont. We're all one Claremont. There's no south of the track. There's no north of the tracks. It's all one Claremont. And I heard from somebody say once, they said, that's what people north of the tracks say. The people south of the tracks, we know there's a difference. We see it. You exit the Indian Hill in the 10 freeway and you exit town in the 210 freeway. It's different.
Yeah.
You see it. And if you're going to tell me it's not different, we'll agree to disagree from that perspective. But exiting Indian Hill, the 10, there's a lot of infrastructure inequalities that I'm working on fixing. And there's a lot of activity that we've done over the last 2 years. So I think that South Claremont within this next year or two will look completely different than it has in the last 2 or 3 years. And that I applaud myself and my colleagues because we've done an amazing job recognizing that we need to correct what hasn't been done, what hasn't been corrected already.
Right. Mm-hmm. So what's in the future for you? It'll be 19 years. I won't jump to 20 yet. It'll be 19 years here, more city council. What's the plan?
It's funny because I don't know how far in the future I look right now. I'm enjoying right now. To your point, I think the business is doing okay, as rough as things are post COVID or economic downturn or whatever you call it. I think the business is okay. I think I'm happy where I'm at now, and I'm enjoying life to the fullest because I'm living on house money. I'm playing with house money at this point. This is the icing on the cake. This is the post game celebration, whatever you want to call it. A year ago, I turned 50, and I joked when I turned 40. I told my wife I turned 40. I'm at the halftime show. This is the halftime show. And now that I turned 50, I joke, and she doesn't like to hear this, but it's the reality. I got more years behind me than I do in front of me. So from that perspective, I value my time differently. I look at my minutes and my hours differently than I did 10 years ago. So to me, I don't want to get ahead of myself and say, what am I going to do in 10 years? It's the same thing I did when I was in elementary school. I don't know. What are you going to do? I'm just surviving right now. I'm doing the things now. I'm living, I guess, my best life. I'm spending time with family and enjoying those moments. I'm spending time with friends. I'm being intentional about the people that I spend my free time with. I'm also doing things I shouldn't be doing. I'm jumping out of planes. I'm trying to find the largest bungee in the world to see if I can jump a bunch of that. After doing the largest bungee in Costa Rica, I got addicted to that adrenaline rush. And I want to do it now before there's a time that I cannot do it. I convinced myself this year that I would run a half marathon, which I did. And I've got a second half marathon coming up. I am now expecting to run the LA marathon next year. And it's the same thing. It's like, well, why do you tell people? It's like, because now I have to do it. I'm training to run a marathon. There's just things that I want to do now while my body and mind are still available to do that. But as far as what's next, I'm just going to keep living the way I'm living now. I'm going to try to be better at what I do, try to make the business successful, make sure people are happy around me, and really just enjoy life.
Yeah.
You're
living.
Yeah. I think in their 50s, I think people tell me all the time that when you hit your 40s, you stop caring about what people think about you. You stop worrying about those little details. So if that's in your 40s, at 50s, you really turn a corner.
Right.
You really get to the point where it's like, that's not your color. It's like, I don't care.
Yeah.
It
took me a little longer, I think.
Yeah,
but,
and it's interesting, especially in the public place, being in front of people and being in the public sector. You do have to pay a little attention to what you wear, what you do, or what you say. But at the end of the day, being who you are is the most liberating thing about getting older.
Yeah,
I think when you're young, it's hard to be who you are because you don't know who you are, and people are telling you who you are. So you're trying to listen to them and trying to listen to the inside voice. And as you get older, you stop listening to the noise, and the inside voice almost stops talking to you as well and just gives you peace.
Yeah.
And allows you to just be. So I think going forward, the goal is that we keep running the business as successfully as we can to allow me to do the things that I continue to do. I did say this to somebody the other day who joked with me about my travel because I was fortunate this year. In fact, this weekend I'm going to Guanajuato to sign sister city documents with the city of Claremont and the city of Guanajuato. And she kind of joked and said, wow, that's lucky you get to do that. And I corrected her and I said, no, I wouldn't say luck. I would definitely say I'm fortunate. I'm blessed to be able to do that because the lifestyle, the work that my wife has, the job that she has, the work that we do here, it's allowed me the flexibility and the luxury to do those things. And it is, as people say, I don't have to do this. I get to do this.
Right. But you worked really hard for a very long time to get to this point.
It is the light at the end of the tunnel, the rainbow, the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But that is the issue, the concern that I always have with when I talk to people today is that everything has to be instantaneous. Everyone wants to come in and work for me and become a master som in 5 years. Everyone needs to have the best things today. There's no purpose. And I think we forget that sometimes it's not the destination, it's the journey. And if you can figure out how to convince yourself at a young age that is true, life will be so much better.
So maybe, and that's your answer, what would you tell younger people today? What would you have told yourself at 20, 21, 22?
One of the things that I do constantly tell youth when I get a chance or an opportunity to talk to them, I do often say is that surround yourself with good people. Surround yourself with good people, especially as you're young, because you don't realize that as a kid, your friends have almost greater influence on you than you do on yourself. They will force you to do things or tell you to do things that you will do that you know is wrong or that you shouldn't be doing. But if you surround yourself with the right people and those good and right people tell you, hey, let's show up to math on time. Let's show up to, our co-curricular activity. Let's just join Kiwanis. Let's do good things. you'll do those good things. So for me, it's surround yourself with good people first and foremost. Absolutely. And second, don't be afraid to dream big. And when you think about, I want to do this for a living, go bigger than that. Go beyond. Don't accept a ceiling for yourself. Once you create a ceiling, there's a cap. For people that I talk to, it's like, hey, when do you want to make your first million? It's like, I'm never going to make $1 million. Like, well, that's why you're never going to make $1 million. Accept that there's a chance you might make $1 million. And if you never do, you never do. But if you do, then you look for the next million. Then you look for the next home. Then you look for the next friend. Then you look for the next travel. Then you look for the next whatever makes your life happy. And that's the thing, is that more can be bad, but more can also be good. You get 1 degree. It's okay to get a 2nd degree. It's okay to get a 3rd degree. You volunteer 1 hour. It's okay to volunteer 5 hours. 10 hours, whatever it may be. You have 1 business. It's okay to have 2. So it's dream bigger than you think you're allowed to dream.
Sal, thank you so much. This was for sharing your story. You've had an incredible life, and I appreciate you sharing that with us.
You're welcome. It's funny because we've known each other for a number of years. And I'm sure just looking at your reaction that even some of the things that I said today is like, I didn't know that about you.
Yeah.
And a lot of it, believe it or not, is just a lot of the things that I shared today, I don't always share with people. And I don't always share with people because I don't want people to feel sorry or have pity or think, oh, that's a shame, or, oh, it's, a poor kid, or poor, oh, that's so bad. It's always that thing that we play in minority groups. It's like, who grew up poor? We do that with each other. It's like, well, I grew up with nothing, and I grew up with less than nothing. It's like, so we do that. So now that I am where I am, I love sharing the story of who I am, because I want people to know that anything is possible.
Well, and that's why I want to do this is, I get students all the time. I've had hundreds and hundreds of students, and a lot of them have similar backgrounds to you. And to hear somebody like them and have that success, but also know it takes work and it takes, right? You just got to keep going. It's not going to come to you.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, a lot of effort. But again, remember, sometimes it's not the destination. It really is the journey.
It's that. And figuring out who you are on that journey. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you for letting me share my story.
Thank you so much for listening to Path Found. If anything we talked about today connected with you or gave you a new perspective, we'd love it if you subscribed, left a review, or shared the episode with someone you care about. You can also find us on Instagram at Path Found Podcast. To explore more stories, resources, and ways to get involved, visit KeystoneNetwork.org. This podcast is just one part of the journey. At Keystone Network, we're helping young people and anyone figuring it out as they go build meaningful futures one step at a time. A huge thank you to my podcast editor, David Strutt. You can find him on LinkedIn for helping bring these stories to life, and to Elizabeth Miner at Silvermine Creative for the beautiful artwork and web design. And if you're on your own path, navigating the unknown, making a pivot, or simply figuring it out as you go, just know you're not alone. The route may not be linear, but there's always a way forward. I'm Monica Argandonia, and I'll see you next time on Path Found.